Hello, my name is Robert Șerban. Um, I am a manager of Asociația Merge Înainte Brașov, Romania. And today we have the pleasure to present you, together with my colleague, a webinar.
Thank you, Robert. Hi there. My name is Delia, and today we are going to talk about fighting discrimination and anti-Gypsyism in education and employment in the European Union. This webinar, and more exactly this project, was supported by the program by Justice Rights, Equality and Citizenship and Pilot Projects 2014 of DG Justice of the European Union. More specific, we are going to talk about strategies for effective communication with family. So now let's move further and to talk about relevant factors of the educational system in the Roma community. To understand more exactly this topic, we should start to put some questions. And first question is, what is the context of social, economic and labor market for the Roma community in Europe? Second question, what generates social inequalities, impoverished social perception and debasement of Roma community? And the third question is, do you know the common factors which limit access to education of Roma? To understand this question and to be able to answer of this question, we should to define some terms. So let's start with access in education, which is direct related to our topic. So access in education refers to the ways in which education institutions and policies ensure that students have equal opportunities and equitable opportunities to take full advantage of their education. Another term is illiteracy, and that means inability to read and write. Okay, and dropout refers to a student who fails to complete a school or a college course. General view about our topic, we should talk a bit about Roma in Europe and in general, in particular in Eastern European countries. And the Roma in Europe, and in particular Roma in Eastern European countries, present a number of problems to get access and integrate into the educational system. These issues affecting the Roma community result from a lack of training, and consequently its members have no access to the labor market in equal terms with the majority of the population. These generate other social inequalities, such as less wealth, a poor perception of Roma in society at large, and a debasement in the Roma community. Factors influencing these are multiplied, the result of a variety of social causes, economical and cultural issues, which influence the development and evolution of the Roma community in each the European countries. So let's pass to the social, economic and labor market to see what is happening there. Roma, as you know, Roma constitute a large minority. In Romania, for example, It is the biggest minority after Hungarian minority ethnic group. Roma in Bulgaria are the second ethnic minority, about 5.5% of the population. While in Spain it is estimated that they have make up about 1.42% of the population. Despite the difficulties in determining the exact number of the Roma population that lives in European countries, it is obvious that it forms a broad group of citizens who have been presented in Europe since the 14th century. In general terms, although there is much heterogeneity in the Roma community, socioeconomic characteristics of European Roma are common. Roma are more affected by poverty and extreme poverty than the majority of citizens. Many Roma live today in the colonies and ghettos, occupying marginal position in the economic and productive life of their countries. From the perspective of the economy and employment, Roma are usually marginal occupation, in some cases jobs that are unqualified or unsafe. In addition, the liberalization that occurred after the fall of socialist government in the current economic crisis marked deterioration to significant level of poverty and unemployment of Roma communities. Among the main reasons causing this situation of uncertainty, economic and employment for the Roma in Europe are a drop in traditional sector of employment of labor market, educational levels below the national average. This limits significant growth opportunities and access to labor market for Roma. Discrimination in the labor market reduces the possibilities of Roma workers to get a job. In short, in adverse economic conditions, the Roma population have a higher risk of being poor, of being in a marginal position in society, with difficulties in accessing the labor market. In this context, education plays a fundamental role. It is one of the most important ways to achieve greater development, integration and training for Roma, and ultimately a better quality of life. Now, let's start to talk about education. Of course, in general terms and in particular. In general terms, Roma in Europe have a lower level of education as well, higher illiteracy level, a higher dropout rate. Roma students have a low presence in higher education and are generally less successful at school. The most common problems faced by Roma children and their families can be grouped in three categories. A. Factors affecting the social economic exclusion of families. And here we can meet poverty and extreme poverty. Poverty is one of the main barriers to inclusion and participation in school. Although it is a complex phenomenon. Economical, it means that families may not have access to education centers because they not have the ability to cover the cost of education, such as books, transportation, or other needs. Unemployment and underemployment, job insecurity, low wages, and labor discontinuity are economic difficulties in financial education. Internal and external migration. Migration taking place mainly for economic reasons and work cause discontinuity in the contact between schools and the students and their families. Lack of necessary documents. It's another problem. Lack of documents and regulations make it difficult to access and register at school. Geographical location. Geographical location affects the possibility of accessing schools, either because they do not exist nearby or because those available are segregated or poor. Another factor, B, attitudes in the Roma community and the education system. And here we have prejudices and mistrust between schools and the Roma community. We have like many schools have a weak relationship with Roma parents, which has a direct effect in the perception of parents regarding school and on their lack of knowledge and informal about the opportunities and benefits of continuing education for their children. Another problem is lack of motivation for Roma pupils, and also lack of role models with Roma families. Another problem is deviations in the school system work against families in poverty or extreme poverty. The next factor, C, is shortcoming in the education system. Here we have the education system is not adequately prepared culturally to cope with diversity of students and to integrate ethnic minorities. Teachers do not have sufficient knowledge and experience regarding intercultural education and do not exploit the diversity of students within the school. As institution, schools tend to focus on a model that presupposes homogeneity of students. Diversity is often seen as an obstacle associated with difficulties more than a trait that can bring added value. Another problem is lack of sufficient resources to develop quality programs and action to support minorities and specifically the Roma community. And also segregation and discrimination against Roma in the education system. We think that already you have like a tight picture about the main problems which face Roma community, and also we should start to think about some questions. First question is, can you talk about integration into education system without direct financial support measure for families? And also, you should think, can teachers be considered the key for Roma community involved in the education process? Now, let's pass to the methodological instrument of intervention in favor of Roma families after we put so many questions to ourselves. And let's try to define some terms and also to put ourselves some questions. So, first question is, what are the stages of interventions? Second, what local actors may be involved in project activities? And third one is, what activities are part of the working with the family plan? In order to be able to respond to this question, let's try to define some terms. Plan. You heard about plan. So let's see what it means, plan. Plan is a scheme or method of proceeding. Also, design. Design means to prepare the preliminary sketch or the plans. We have a goal, and the goal is the result of achievement toward which effort is directed. And evaluation, of course, the final, and like appraisal. Um, Before to start to talk about analyzing family and social context, um, let's see what is a general picture of this, like a general frame of this chapter. So, below we present the stages of intervention model in Roma families that can be used by teams of professionals to make them more aware, to engage them effectively in the common effort towards integration, improve the results of their children at school. After this general frame, let's start to talk about analyzing family and social context. Before they are contacted, families need to know the context in which the professional will intervene. Social conditions, factors can be described as contextual determinants of the needs and difficulties of families. We need to collect key socioeconomic and community information in the places where families live and simultaneously inform them about the program. So let's see regarding about family. First of all, let's identify the number and type of families who are potential beneficiaries in line with the characteristics and goals of the program. After, identify the language used by families, whether it is the language of the country of Romani language. Assess housing conditions, sanitation, space, crowded facilities, and also evaluate the work context, the type of occupations, rent, employment status, job security, unemployment economy or types of employment contracts like permanent, self-employment, precarious or temporary, the type of activities they carry out of receiving social aid, and etc. B, let's see the social context of the area in which intervention is to take place, like neighborhood, village, city, settlement. And here we have the structure of social marginalization, isolation, etc., and or possible violence existing in the environment. Situation and problems related to integration, inclusion, exclusion, and marginalization in the area in which activities are carried out. Of course, we are talking about social and social inclusion or social exclusion. Yeah. Integration of social identity in the community, the family lives sense of belonging, inclusion, or rejection. Participation of family and community dynamics involved in social services, cultural activities, community events, sport, clubs, neighborhood associations, celebrations, and so on. And now, let's see how can we attract and recruit families and partners. Establish contact with selected families and deepen awareness of the program and of actions to be undertaken by different stakeholders involved. Education centers, Roma families, students, other social agents in the community. In some context, it would be useful to identify a person or a group of persons or key people in the community to promote the program and to ensure convenience and usefulness. These figures provide access to certain families or even to entire community. The main steps are: establish initial contact with families, the identification of students likely to be beneficiaries according to the program criteria, and conducting group intervention with families and or specific families designed to create an emotional connection, a relationship of trust, which will help motivate intervention. Let's pass now to talk about the relationship between family and professional, like linking. Actions and methods to be used include meetings, interviews, support and advice, organizing a welcoming event for families at the school, creating groups of parent associations, training seminars, organizing activities for parents, adult literacy programs, support for other resources, etc. For teachers and or guardians, it is convenient to consider the option of organizing seminars, workshop meetings to provide individual support for tutors, and to provide training for parents and children who come from segregated schools. Adult literacy programs support to complete the bureaucratic procedures for parents' relationship to other resources. Let's see what we should do, more exactly what we have to do in the initial evaluation. Firstly, we must define basic information about the family that will serve for initial assessment of their situation. The information necessary for a proper evaluation includes, firstly, structure and organization of the family. Also, education profile of the family, and family attitudes toward the education system and its relationship with it, and community relations. Now we are in another stage about our working with the family plan, and we are going to talk about design. And design, more exactly, design working with the family plan and creating an alliance. Working with the family plan is drawn up for each family in addition to involving children, students, education centers, and other agents. It must be adjusted to the reality of each family, taking into account the needs previously detected. The working family plan must be registered in a general plan of implementation, including a period of time allocated for review of the application plans so as to be able to relieve different changes. The plan is a dynamic tool subject to revisions and readjustments. Working family plan objectives are focused on prevention of school abandonment by children and promoting academic development and performance in education, especially in helping families in the process. One of its principles is to strengthen strategic skills, abilities, and aspiration in their family in order to support the education of their children. It is important to define goals that are motivating and meaningful, allowing parents and other relevant members of the family to perceive that they are able to achieve them. Now, let's see how to implement actions of the working with the family plan. Let's pass to the next stage. The objective to the implement of working with the family plan that has been designed with actions enabling to the family to increase their support for children at school and review and follow up. This also implies, in parallel, ensuring integration at school and active participation of school life, as well as other education and social programs. The two main actions of this phase are development of the objectives designed, individual intervention, always, counseling and sharing education guidelines with the family, the intervention group, just if it is applicable, and reference to other resources, just if it is necessary. And next stage is evaluation objectives. Evaluate each of the planned working family plan objectives and, where necessary, design new ones. Keep the agencies involved in the reviews and follow-up of the working family plan. Let's see how it works, evaluation and intervention. This stage aims to carry out a systematic collection of both quantitative and qualitative information that will allow us to evaluation the intervention in terms to adequacy of implementation process, the degree of fulfillment of the objective setting, the relevance of and effectiveness of the program. Let's see what are the main steps in designing the evaluation. First, select the types of issues that we consider relevant to know about. Select indicators based on the question we want to answer, then identify the methods and technique that we will use. Plan times when we gather information, leaving room for both their analysis and to gather the views of those most important representatives, like stakeholders associated with the programs. Issue a regular report showing in advances in the program and its results. This report will help us know what is happening with the program and will allow us to introduce the necessary changes. Reports also are important because they reveal the roadmap, give visibility, and in the same case they are useful to increasing the sustainability of the program. It is important to have access to the tools used in the implementation of the program, such as evaluation tools, field journals, minutes of meetings, timesheets with family participation in the activities, absences of the students from school, and so on. In addition to complete information and indicators, it is very important to use qualitative methods and organization of meetings and or interviews to find out participation's opinions. These questionnaires are an appropriate tool, but could be difficult to apply to certain populations. Instead to some qualitative techniques, such as structures or semi-structures interview or focus groups, offer the same estimate and allows us to know and identify what is happening in the program. To improve intervention, both in terms of implementation and to obtain the anticipated results, It is extremely important that the evaluation process is accompanied by a series of recommendations. Once the assessment is completed, it is important for the results of the program to be communicated through publications or seminars, forums, or conferences. Pay special attention to ensure privacy and data protection, especially if information is shared by different agents. And now let's try again to answer to some questions. Some questions to think about. So, does emotional involvement and creating links with family involve potential risks? Another question is, what are the advantages of using the working family plan? After this moment of reflection, let's pause and talk about skills recommended for professionals who are working with Roma. And let's start again with a moment of reflection. And let's try to think about what are the categories of skills required by professionals working with Roma. In order to be able to respond to this question, we should define some terms. Firstly, what means skill? Skill is the ability to do something well arising from talent, training, or practice. Also, competence. Competence is the ability to do something well or efficiently. And it's important to know what it means initiative. Initiative is the power of ability to begin or to follow through energetically with a plan or task. In this chapter about the skills, we include a systematic collection of some general skills that would be recommended in professional conducting activities with Roma families. In addition to technical knowledge and experience, they would need to have other skills too. We recommend you like cognitive skills. And in this category, we include learning, analytical thinking, and recognition of patterns. Also, very important are competencies required for achieving goals. And here we have orientation toward achieving the objectives, taking the initiative, searching for information, and discipline and quality orientation. Let's see about personal profile. Here we have interpersonal sensitivity, family orientation, persuasion, persuasion, and personal impact. Please excuse me. Also, we have leadership skills, and for the officials responsible in the teams, staff development, people management, also very important is teamwork, and personal skills. We have self-confidence, self-control, flexibility, engagement in the entity and program. again, it's my favorite part, the moment of reflection. And we have two questions to think about. And first question is, list some not really a question, it's more a recommendation. List some advantages of having a Roma ethnic professional working in the team. And also, please think about, can the team be considered to be the only asset in the successful implementation of a project? Thank you for attention. Until next time, take care.